Hey, welcome into another episode of DIY Money.
DIY money.
What's shaking in your world, Howard?
What? You have a puppy and a house and
Yeah,
chaos,
but they hear about
you
this.
slip on an air
They've
mattress.
heard about this a million times.
You're gonna ask me?
Yes, I'm going to ask you, of course.
Not a lot. Summer is kind of winding up, question mark. I'm going to the lake.
Winding down?
Winding down. Man, that's such a bummer. I don't want to say that. I'm going to the lake this weekend, though, which I'm very excited about. I have not had a true, my family is not a lake family. You've met my dad, Gary. He's not a boat guy, okay? We're not a boat family. And I never really had a lot of friends. Lexington's close to, Harrington Lake, but the lake culture here is not.
Let me ask this.
Is this a thing?
I'm totally going off a tangent,
okay.
But you said that about your dad. Is your dad a baseball guy?
No.
No? Okay, never mind.
Totally. He's not. He watches UK. He's not a sports guy.
Okay. I thought he'd go to a baseball game and eat peanuts. That's just kind of.
He's a peanuts guy. That's for sure.
Fair.
But I don't know if he's a baseball guy.
Okay. All right. Fair enough.
Anyway, so I'm really looking forward to it, but I'm I don't think I understand what we're even going to do. I've never had a true lake weekend.
What?
I'm serious.
Oh, I love the lake. It's
I've gone to the lake
out
for a day, and you go on the boat.
Are you doing a houseboat, or are you doing just staying at a cabin? Or
we're staying at a cabin. I think we have kayaks. I don't think we have a boat.
Nice.
So it's going to be fun. I've done lake trips, but I haven't done a lake weekend.
Well, now you're in.
And we're doing a shrimp boil, which I'm kind of fired up.
Nice.
Yeah, fired up
about
that.
Kind of like a crawfish boil. Yep.
It's going to be interesting.
That sounds fun.
And I hope to be in the sun the whole time. Yeah.
Holy
it's going to be bougie.
This is
high
living for you.
I know. And I'm going to sleep and take a nap. And I think there's a hot tub. So come Monday, I'm going to be a whole different person.
Wow.
Well rested, laked. Probably you won't even recognize me. I'm going to be so tan.
That's
wishful thinking.
Yeah. Okay.
No, I'll be burnt for sure.
Well, okay. Allie's going to have a wonderful weekend. She's going to get laked, I guess. So let's get to our. That's what you said. Let's get to our sponsors, Joule Financial, JOULE Financial.com. That's our day jobs. We also have our other sponsors, so we'll take a quick pause for them. We need questions, so send those questions in, podcast@DIYmoney.org. That's podcast@DIYmoney.org. If we use it on the show, you get a $25 Amazon gift card. We're doing a lot more on the social media channels, so check those out. DIY Money Podcast on pretty much all of your socials. Gosh, we got to start TikTok, but it just hasn't happened yet. I haven't, my dances haven't fully developed enough.
Well, you're moving. There's a lot going on.
I will not be dancing on TikTok, just to be clear. But
at some point.
Maybe. Okay, so let's get to our question of the day. Allie, our question of the day is from?
Devin.
Devin, what do you got?
DIY! Hey, DIY Money Gurus. This is Devin in Illinois. Thanks for the show. You all do an amazing job, and I appreciate the questions you've answered over the years, as well as the different series episodes you do. Keep up the stellar job. Somewhat of a basic question. 5 years or less, don't invest. Got it. But what do you do at 5 years? Say I've been investing for a house 8 years down the road, and now it's 5 years to go. What steps should I take? Should I move my invested monies out of the investments? Should I keep them in and just put future money into money markets or high-yield savings accounts? Similarly, what would you advise if suddenly your time horizon shifts? Say you planned for 5 to 8 years out, but now you need the money sooner, like 4 or 5 years. How would that change your strategy? I look forward to your thoughts. Thanks for the podcast.
That's fire.
That's a
guru.
great question. Yeah,
DIY
you got
guru.
A guru. I like that. That was nice. I don't know if I'm a guru, but I'll
I wouldn't
take
say
it.
that. Yeah.
All right, Allie, you kick us off.
Yeah. Okay. This is a great question.
Yes.
I don't know if we've ever touched on this, and we harp on 5 years or less.
Yeah.
I mean, we say that every episode. Yeah, we get it. 5 years or less, don't invest. But I think this comes down to why 5 years. So when you invest in markets, as those who do it know, it can be very volatile. And some days you'll have days the market's up 2%, 3%, down. There are days that there was a crazy day back in April, down 15. It's crazy. But the reason why we have a 5-year time horizon is because when you need that money, the last thing you want to do is you go to buy that car and you're about to take money out the day before because you didn't listen to 5 years or less, don't invest, and some crazy news headlines hit a couple weeks prior. Yep. So the market tanks. And it's all responding to all of this news that has not been priced into the market. And so what ends up happening is you may have put 20,000 in there back in the day, and it's gone up and it's gone down. You go to buy that car, well, now I need 20,000. There might only be 18 in there, depending on the timeline of how long you've had it in there and what the market has done in the meantime. So in general, I think, and you can speak to this, you know markets far better than I do, but I think the 5-year time horizon is adding in some padding so that if I need a car in 5 years from now, I have the next 5 years to find a time that I feel like the market is stable and start to slowly de-risk that money. So what you do not do is as soon as the 5-year clock hits, you run over to Charles Schwab and you're like, I gotta get my money out. Logan said 5 years or less. And you take it out all in one chunk and hope for the best, and it is what it is. So we talk a lot about the opposite of this, dollar cost averaging. And what dollar cost averaging is instead of taking your 20,000 and one day you wake up and you want to invest it and you just put all of it in the market that exact day and hope for the best. Instead, what's often more helpful is over the next 3 months, 6 months, 5 years, you have to kind of decide the window based on what markets are doing and your time horizon. But over a period of time, you put small chunks in. And what that basically does is it kind of averages out the price that you're buying things at. So let's say I'm going out and I'm buying Apple. If Apple's priced, and I don't know what Apple's trading at, any idea today what it's trading at?
I don't know. It's been on a pretty good run, so I don't know the exact price right now, but it's had a couple of good days in a row. Yeah, I think right now it's maybe $215 or so.
Okay, we're going to use 200 because it's easier. So let's say Apple's at 200 today. So I take $50, I throw it at Apple, I bought it at $200 a share. Then the next day it's at $215. Well, that's great. It went up, so the $50 I put in already has increased in value a little bit, but I'm paying more for the next shares of Apple. So I'm getting a little bit less quantity of Apple when I'm putting in my next $50 at $215. Okay, now, another 6 months rolls by and they miss their earnings call and Apple is down. So now the stock's trading at $180. So when I put in my same $50, guess what? Now I get more shares for the 50. So over the course of time, as that stock goes up and goes down, I'm getting different quantities for the same dollar value. But then what I already put in is growing or shrinking based on what that stock does. And so why in the world does that make sense? Well, effectively what that does is it reduces the risk of you either buying Apple when it's at an all-time high, and so you get a lot less Apple quantity, and then that stock decreases over time. But also it decreases the chance that maybe you got lucky and that the opposite is true. You bought Apple on the perfect day and it continues to ride off into the sunset and you're amazing. And so what that basically does is it doesn't necessarily mean I'm going to make more money. It just means that I am decreasing the risk of the money that I'm putting in going in at a really poor time. And that's why you dollar cost average.
Well, yeah, and there's a psychology aspect to it too, right? Because you're timing the market is very difficult, and if you time the market, Murphy's Law says what could happen will happen, so you can be hit with some of those big declines, and then you're not used to the volatility that you could see in those investments. So you could see a big decrease over time, or you could see a big increase, which is great, and then you get a little bit overconfident. So a lot of that is psychology to do with that. Mm-hmm.
What's interesting about timing the market, too, is if you're going to time the market perfectly, you have to be right not once, but twice, because you've got to be right on the buy, you've got to be right on the sell. So it can be very risky. And so what I would encourage you to do is when you hit that 5-year timeline, you're not necessarily thinking, I can't be invested at all. I've got to run for the hills. Let's grab my money and run. But what you should be thinking about is what is a strategy given the current market conditions? And maybe like this year, the market has been very volatile. So that might change your approach over a year where it's been very steady. And things coming up on the horizon. If it's an election year, you're probably going to see some more volatility going into the election, right? So you take some of those current factors and you've got to game plan a little bit. What is my strategy here? Because when you get to 5 months out, 6 months out, you probably should have very little exposed to the market, if any, if you're going to go make a cash purchase and take all of it out. But you don't necessarily need to be at that point when you hit that 5-year mark. Yeah. And so it's hard to answer your question specifically to you, one, because we don't know your full situation and we can't legally do that, but also because a lot of the timing in that, to me, is going to depend on market conditions and what's going on in our world and in our economy. But the encouragement would be try to think through when you hit the 5-year, what is my strategy here, and then stick to it. It's going to be really tempting if you decide, okay, I'm going to de-risk 10% every 6 months. So every 6 months I'm going to sell 10% of what I own, and I'm going to put it in a money market or in a treasury that comes due when I objectively need it, whatever strategy. Because then the risk can be the 6-month window comes, maybe there is some volatility, and now you're like, okay, well I'll wait 3 more weeks. Oh, well, I'll wait 5 more months. And then eventually you get closer and closer, and you're still very exposed to a very volatile market. So I would think about it as dollar cost averaging, taking the opposite approach. That's what I say. What say you, Logan?
Yeah, I like that. When we think about 5 years or less, just from a purely market standpoint, why are we talking about that? Well, if you look at the history of markets over a long period of time, and we look at like a 10-year rolling time horizon, so we're looking at like the S&P 500 over a 10-year rolling time horizon, even when things were really bad at different times, even when you had a 2008, 2009, even when you had 2001, when we had a tech bubble, even when you had even some of the big declines over time. If you look at 10-year rolling basis, the market typically has not been down. Like you don't have over a 10-year time period, if you start at point A and end at point B and 10 years in between that, you don't normally have a market down. I don't know if there's ever been a time in a 10-year rolling period where it's truly down over that 10 years. It's been flat before where it hasn't really done anything, but not necessarily down. Now, 5-year time horizon, flip a coin. Right? Like it could definitely, there's a lot of time periods where you look at 5-year rolling time period where the market has been down over those 5 years. It is painful sometimes to follow the 5-year or less do not invest rule. My wife and I have been building up cash for the last 3 years to buy this house that we wanted to buy. 4 years, I would say even. The market has been amazing for the last 3 years, right? Like it's painful to see us putting money into a money market that is paying us a little bit, but just kind of that steady regular interest. And my retirement accounts are doing fantastic. But it's wise, because if we had found the perfect house in April of this year, we would have been sitting there shaking our heads going, well, we can't take out money now because the market is getting annihilated. It's getting hit really hard, and we have money invested that we need for this down payment. Because if you look at those longer time periods, again, your market typically goes up over time. Over the last 100 years, S&P 500 has averaged 10%. So you're normally having those increases. On a typical year, it's about 2/3 of the time you're going to have a positive market return over that year time horizon. So it's very difficult to sometimes sit with that, but it's the wise thing to do. Now, when you're talking about past those 5 years, I think you have to be really conscious of allocation. So if you're setting up and you're going to say, okay, maybe you got an inheritance, you got $30,000, but you know in 6 years you are going to buy a car with that $30,000. Okay, let's set an appropriate allocation that's probably not the same or even close to what your retirement allocations are, because they have a completely different time horizon. Let's set an allocation that's appropriate for that. And then, like you said, Allie, scale that back over time as we become closer and closer to that goal. So it might be 60% stock, 40% bond. It might be 50% stock, 50% bond, depending on the time horizon and depending on your risk tolerance. Because remember, what we're talking about most of the time is psychology. So if you can't handle those market moves over a short period of time when you know you're going to need the money, put it in a treasury bond. Those are paying pretty nicely right now, even on a 5-year basis or on a 6-year basis. So you could park it in a treasury bond or something like that to get the nice interest. You can even do that on shorter time frames. So we say 5 years or less, don't invest, but we're talking pretty strictly about equity markets. So if you can get something that's guaranteed for the most part, like a treasury bond or maybe a CD from an FDIC insured bank or something along those lines where you're parking money for a while, knowing you're going to need it on a time horizon, that's a good strategy. You're just getting and maximizing the amount of interest you can get. But again, it's all about setting that allocation up front for everything, right? It's about the mix of stocks versus bonds versus other things in your portfolio based on your time horizon and based on your risk tolerance. People a lot of the time focus on the time horizon, but you really got to keep in mind your risk tolerance overall. So if overall in everything you're very conservative across the board, well, then you should probably be pretty conservative on a 6 to 8 year time horizon. If you are really super aggressive with everything you have, just be careful, because 5 years or less, don't invest. If you're at that 6 to 8 year mark, you might be more like a 70% stock, 30% bond portfolio. But remember, you're going to want to scale that back over time and use your brain. After 3 years, if we include this year, of really strong investment markets, now might be a good time to be peeling back some of those equities if you have something short-term that you're going to be needing money for. So just be wise about it. Be thinking in your mind and always having those goals in mind. We do goal-oriented financial planning. We don't do investment-oriented financial planning. The goals then inform how the investments are allocated. And that's really important as people are developing their game plans and trying to decide where money should go on a given basis.
Right. Because sometimes you'll have a situation where if you've built up enough capital to meet your goals, well, why are we rolling the dice, right? If you can meet your goals objectively over time without taking significant risk and without staring at your phone every night wondering, oh man, I really need this car, I hope it doesn't go to zero, I'm freaking out, then why? Like if you have 20,000 and you want to grow it and you need 25, you don't need to take as much risk as someone who has 20,000 and wants to roll the dice to try to get 35. So make sure that you understand how tangible your goal is, and exactly to your point, Logan, as painful as it can be for some people to think about, maybe the answer for your situation is locking in a 4% treasury that comes to maturity when you need that vehicle. And there's nothing wrong with that. You're still meeting your goal. So understanding yourself is really important in this too. So that's a good point.
And the last thing I'll say is he asked about what happens when you have like a drastic shift in a goal. So like, okay, it's going to be 8 years, but all of a sudden now it's 3 to 4 years. Probably you had some significant life event that changed that. Maybe you had another child. Maybe there was something else that changed that event that's really fast forwarding it. Don't feel like you have to have that knee jerk, like you said, Allie. Don't feel like you have to all of a sudden go straight to cash because now you're under the 5-year time window. But be wise about it. Be disciplined. Do your kind of dollar cost averaging out of the market to eventually get to a place where you have a comfortable amount that's sitting there that's available for you. And again, everybody's situation is different. So you got to keep that in mind. Make sure you have a good financial plan and you're adjusting that when life circumstances adjust and when your goals adjust. So again, I wouldn't be changing your overall financial plan when markets fluctuate. I would be changing your overall financial plan when goals fluctuate.
Yeah,
that's one I want to leave it on.
Yep. Perfect. Well, the secret to wealth is very simple. Know your goals. Live on less than you make. Invest the rest. And do so for a very long time. Make it a great one.